Hi friends, I'm Gwen.
And I'm Jacqueline. Welcome to Talk Bookish to Me,
the podcast where friends get together and talk about books.
Happy Monday and welcome to Talk Bookish to Me. Today we have guest Ali Dunn with us to chat all about middle grade books. We'll be sharing some recommendations and of course chatting about some upcoming releases too. We're so excited to have Ali joining us today. Ali, go ahead. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ali. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel called Mrs. Dunn Reads. You can find me on Instagram at _Ali Dunn. But I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for ever.
I know, us too.
And you're like the middle grade queen.
Oh my gosh, that title is just makes me feel so special. That's crazy. So crazy.
Links to Ali's social media will be available in the notes of today's episode, so make sure you guys go check her out. Quick reminder that our next book discussion is coming up. We're reading The Project by Courtney Summers, which is a YA thriller about main character Lo questioning everything she thought she knew about her sister, herself, cults, and the world around her. The discussion is on March 15th, which is our very next episode, and so you still have time to read it and join us for that episode in 2 weeks. Before we jump into today's topic, we always share what we're currently reading. Ali, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll be very quick because currently I am not reading anything on my own right now. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a middle school teacher, and that has been taking up a lot of my time recently. And also, this might count. I'm reading Scythe by Neil Shusterman with my students, and actually this coming week we'll be finishing up that book. So I guess that can count. I've been currently reading that since January with all of them. They're loving it. It's been so fun.
I think it's so fun that you were able to bring that into your classroom, a new, more modern book, you know? And I know you did it last year as well. And I'm always interested, do they like it?
Yeah, they are so into it, and it makes my heart so happy.
That's awesome. I wish I got to read that in school.
Yeah, something like that. So I'm currently reading The Project by Courtney Summers. It's our next book discussion. And I know we just had a recent book discussion, so our next book discussion after The Project won't come until the summertime. But yeah, I'm currently reading this one. I don't want to say any of my thoughts or anything. Obviously, I'm saving all that information for our next episode, so you'll have to tune into that.
Well, I am reading a book that wasn't even on my TBR radar. So one of my friends sent me a message and was like, "Oh my gosh, you need to stop everything and read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig." Is that how you say his last name? Haig?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'll look at my library and see, and then I was like, that's cool, I'm in position 43, and then it showed up at my door. She bought it for me, so she was like, you need to stop everything you're doing and read it right now. So I actually am reading and listening to it. I started listening to it at work a couple days ago, and I think I'm halfway through, and I'm actually really liking it. She had said, she was like, it reminds me of Maybe in Another Life, which is one of my favorite books, and it really does. It's a book about this girl who doesn't think that she wants to live anymore, and somehow it's this midnight library thing. Obviously it's not real, but in this library there's all of these books that are all different ways that your life could have gone, and any regrets that you had that you could take back, anything that maybe you had wanted to do and you chose not to do it. It's literally all these choices, and so she gets to go back and and try different lives. And is it is it as it seems? Did you want to stay in that life? Did you not like that life? It's really cool. I don't know, I really like that concept.
Yeah, that's on my TBR for next month. I'm really excited about that one. I've heard really good things, so yeah. I'm glad you're enjoying it as well. So today's episode is in celebration of Middle Grade March, and if you don't know, Middle Grade March is a reading challenge that started over on Instagram. The Bookstagram community there dedicates the month of March to reading middle grade books, and participating doesn't mean you need to exclusively read middle grade books, nor does it mean you need to be on Instagram at all. It's just a little nudge to get more people to pick up some middle grade books, especially if it's not something that you read very often.
Middle grade books are books written for a core audience of 8 to 12-year-olds. I'd say core audience because many middle grade books have a wide appeal and can be enjoyed by both older readers and even younger readers as read-alouds. Middle grade authors, however, write with an 8 to 12-year-old audience in mind.
Right. They're generally like 30 to 50,000 words. Of course, fantasy can be a little bit longer for world building and stuff. There's usually no profanity, graphic violence, or sexuality. If it's like a romance, it's usually like a first kiss or a crush or something like light and fun like that. The protagonists of middle grade books are typically 8 for like a younger middle grade novel and up to age like 13 for older, more complex books. The focus of these books is more on like friendship, family, the immediate world, and their relationship to it, what happens to them, and it's usually minimal self-reflection, but there are definitely some that do focus on that. It's often told in third person, and these are the general rules, but of course there are exceptions. These are just the quote-unquote norms.
So yeah, I've only like read one middle grade book as an adult. I mean, I'm sure I read some as like a kid, but I'm always wondering because I need to get more recommendations and I need to read more. So like, what is appealing to middle grade novels like as an adult? Like, why would you read them as an adult? And maybe Ali, you want to start us off with this because you're a pro.
Yeah. So I know some people always ask me this question: why do you like them? And I think it's so appealing because there's always a lesson to be learned in a middle grade book. Like, they're written for a purpose, and they're written knowing that a moldable mind will be reading it. And so I think that's what appeals to me. But also, it's appealing because my students are the age that these books are meant for. And that's really what got me started reading middle grade books, was like, my kids were coming up to me asking, do you know a book that has this in it? This is what I want to read. I'm a language arts teacher. You know, I want to be able to recommend books that they're interested in, and that's going to spark them and get them into readers. And so that kind of got me on the track of like, I'm going to read more middle grades. I want to find stuff that I can recommend to them and have a bunch of options lined up for them so that I can turn them into a reader. If, you know, I'm an 8th grade teacher. They come to 8th grade and they're like, I hate reading. So I'm kind of like the last chance for them, really, before they get to high school and get more into sports and music and friends. I'm kind of like the last hope. If they're going to be a reader, they're probably going to start in 8th grade.
You have to. You have to do it.
So, but I like the message that middle grade books have. And they're also very short and easy to read and not super complex and trying to fit too much into one story, if that makes sense.
I feel like it goes back to what you said, like it has a message. It's that moral. Remember when you, like the children's books that you used to read, they always had like a moral of the story. And I don't think in adult books we always get that. I mean, definitely it's there sometimes, but other times we're just reading about like a husband killing his wife or something like that. Like that's Jacqueline and I's reading taste. But like there's not that moral of the story. I mean, other than like, don't let your husband kill you. So like I do think that these tackle that. And I think it is important to like push it to a younger audience. My recommendation, if you've never read a middle grade before and you want to try it out, I have 2 suggestions. The first one is to find an author that you've read from before, like maybe a YA or even adult author like Ellen Hopkins, Julie Murphy, etc., and try out their middle grade book. And my second suggestion is to pick a genre that you like. So if you like fantasy books, pick a fantasy middle grade. If you like contemporary, pick a contemporary middle grade, because even the middle grade is like a big umbrella and there's lots of different genres, just like fiction. You know, when you say fiction, you're like, well, what kind of fiction are we talking about here? So just like any other, it's a subgenre. Look for your subgenres that you like. So
yeah, that makes sense. I actually didn't realize that a lot of authors that wrote like adult books would have like middle grade also. I didn't realize that.
Just like they jump ahead, like Julie Murphy, she has some young adult books. She's done middle grade. She's also doing her new release this year is going to be adult. So there's definitely authors that span the genres.
So I need to tell Colleen Hoover, hey, can you write a middle grade book, please?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely send her a letter.
I mean, she writes YA, she writes adult, and new adult, why not young adult?
Middle grade paranormal romance.
Middle grade.
Are we ready to jump in to the middle grade recommendations that you guys are pretty much just recommending to me and then our listeners?
I'm so ready.
I'm ready. Okay, so I want to start off with graphic novels because they're some of my absolute favorites. So I'm going to recommend anything by Raina Telgemeier. The Babysitter's Club, Ghosts, Drama, Smile, all of those. The Babysitter's Club is actually the middle grade series that got me to be a reader. I read them when I was the middle grade age. Absolutely loved that. The Babysitter's Club series follows a group of friends who launch a babysitting club business, and it's about friendship, it's about, you know, gaining independence. And not only is it just like a book series that you can get, but it's also been redone by Raina Telgemeier in graphic novel form, and I love it just as much. Like, it's so fun, it's so cute, and you just have to try it. Ghosts it has like some heavier topics to it. So Katrina and her family are moving to the coast of Northern California because her little sister Maya is sick, and Kat isn't happy about leaving her friends, obviously, but Maya has cystic fibrosis and will benefit from the cool, salty air that blows in from the sea. So as the girls explore their new home, a neighbor lets them in on a secret. There are ghosts in town. So that one sounds like a lot of fun. I haven't read that one, but I have read Drama by Raina Telgemeier, and this is all about like theater. Callie loves theater, and she would totally try out for her middle school's production of Moon Over Mississippi, but she can't sing, and it's a musical that they're doing, obviously. So instead, she's the set designer for the department stage crew, and she's determined to create this like really awesome set. And I really like the drama both on and off set for that one. And then of course the series Smile, it's a series, I think there's like 2 or 3 of them. And then the next series, Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill, which follows the story of Greta, a blacksmith apprentice, and the people she meets as she becomes entwined in the enchanting world of tea dragons. First one's really, really cute. That's the only one I've really had a chance to dabble in.
I didn't realize that was middle grade. That's awesome. It's on my list. I've heard really great things about it. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Another hint I was going to say, sometimes people don't realize it's middle grade. So how I know is, where did I find this in Barnes and Noble? And I'm like, did I find it over in that like children's section? Because like they do in the children's section of Barnes and Noble, they have like the, you know, the picture book section. And then like on the other side, they have kind of more like the middle grades. Like I know that's where they keep The Giver. So I was having the hardest time finding that book when I wanted to buy a different edition of it. I was like, where is it in the bookstore? And I was like, oh, this is where they keep all the middle grades.
Interesting.
So that's how I knew that the Tea Dragon Society was middle grade. Do you have any graphic novels for us, Ali?
Yeah, I have a few actually. So there's this series. It's called the New Kid series. It's by Jerry Craft. And the first graphic novel is called New Kid. And it's about a mixed kid who is starting over at a new school where diversity is really low and the struggle to fit in is very, very real. And it tackles some bigger issues like racism and prejudice and being one of the only people of color in this like prep school that he goes to, and just like the stereotypes that come with that, while also being and wanting to have dreams and set goals and stuff like that. So that's the first one in the series. It's very, very good. That's the one that I've read. But the one that I haven't read is called Class Act. It's the second one, and it's the companion to New Kid. And this is about the main character from New Kid's friend. He takes center stage in the story. He's being one of the few kids of color in this private school as well, and it's all about his life and the hard times he has faced and him trying to overcome that and not get caught up in stereotypes as well when it comes to stereotyping those who are stereotyping him. And I'm really interested in this one. It sounds really, really good. Jerry Craft is great. The graphics are amazing. There's so much color. Even if you just look up these covers on Goodreads, they just pop and it makes you want to read it. So those are 2. And then I have another series. It's called the Space Boys series by Stephen McCraney. And this one is very interesting. This is like a sci-fi middle grades graphic novel. It's kind of on the edge of middle grades, kind of going into YA. But this is about a girl who belongs in a different time. Her name is Amy. And to her, everyone has a flavor. Like she has that thing, that sixth sense.
Yeah, where everything tastes.
Yeah, like people have flavor. She looks at them and she's like, oh, my mom has a mint flavor because she's sharp and she's bright, and my dad's flavor is hot chocolate and he's sweet and full of gentle warmth. Yeah. But they live in a mining colony in outer space. But when her dad loses her job, they're forced to move back to Earth. So they're like frozen in this tube on the spaceship for 30 years going back to Earth. So by the time she gets to Earth, all of her friends in space are like in their mid-30s or in their 40s. And she is now on Earth trying to like figure out this strange world and make friends. And she meets this boy who doesn't have a flavor. And that's the first time that's ever happened. It's very interesting. I've read like the first 3 in the series. They're very short. They always end. And I'm like, no, what's going to happen? But they're so
That does sound very
interesting graphic novel I think I've ever read. It's very
But it's crazy because like you say sci-fi and I'm like, ugh, I don't like sci-fi. But then I'm like, it's middle grade. It's something totally doable. And it's graphic novel, so
I'm really not into sci-fi. But this, it's so easy to read. The colors, oh my gosh, the art style, it's so good. Just look it up, give it a try. Because if you don't like sci-fi, that doesn't mean you're not gonna like this. Because it's so simplistic. It's not like super detailed, all of this technology.
It's not like The Martian.
No. And then the last one that I have, the last recommendation for this category is El Defo by Cece Bell. This is very much middle grade. It's kind of on the lower end, but it's also like a memoir by Cece Bell and just her experience growing up, and she goes deaf. And it's about her story in graphic novel form. And it's all about just her story, and because she used to be able to hear, and then I can't remember what the disease is called that she ends up getting.
I think it's meningitis.
Meningitis, yes, that's it. That's it. She gets meningitis, she goes deaf, and now she has to wear like this phonic ear. And she kind of turns it into, well, I'm a superhero. And she calls herself El Defo. Because with this phonic ear, her teacher has to wear like this microphone. And her teacher goes all around school, forgets to turn the microphone off, and she can hear everything. And it's very cute while also tackling some deeper topics.
Oh, I'm writing these down when you're talking about them because I definitely want to look that one up. I think that one would be great.
Yeah, so this one, it's kind of funny because I took American Sign Language for interpreting for 5 years in college. Like, that's what I was going to college for after teaching. I actually read this while I was still in the interpreting program. And all of my American Sign Language teachers are deaf. Or, were deaf that I had. And so I was just trying to immerse myself in the culture as much as possible. And that's one of the books that came up recommended. And I read it. And it was so interesting, but such like a middle grade way that like everybody, even if you know nothing about like the deaf culture or anything like that. And of course, the time, like Ali said, she does go from a hearing, she gets meningitis, she is deaf, and it's not like a cochlear implant. It's not like that. It's like this big, huge machine that she has to wear. Like it's a real thing. And it is, it's just, it makes it palatable, for a younger audience.
I think what I liked so much about it is I learned so much. Like there was simple stuff that I'm like, oh, if you're not hard of hearing or deaf, you wouldn't think about this, but it's an everyday thing. Like there's so many things mentioned in there. I'm like, I didn't even think about that.
Yes. Even though like she has this machine, like it doesn't make her hear. She's still deaf. This just helps. So there would still be times that like her teacher would be talking to her and she's like, yeah, I'm still deaf. You gotta say it again. So there is definitely like keys like that. It was just funny because I was learning all about this stuff in school, and then I was reading about this and I was like, this is like real.
Yeah.
It was
like there was this one part that opened my eyes to it because it talked about like they were watching TV. She was watching TV with her brother, and they were all laughing at what was going on, but she couldn't see the actors' mouths, so she had no idea what they were saying because she had been taught to read lips. But when people aren't facing the camera, when people have their backs turned and they're talking, she's like, nothing's happening. Why is everyone laughing around me? Kind of.
Yeah. I saw something like that on TikTok before where someone was making a TikTok about what it's like to be deaf and like scroll through TikTok and people not put captions on, and it's literally like, you're it's just and you should try it. Like I've like had my phone, the volume all the way down and like scrolling on TikTok, and it is totally not the same. And I'm like, oh wow, look at all of these things that like, yeah, it opens your eyes.
So moving on into contemporary, I think I have one really good recommendation, and I'm hoping this pushes Ali to read it.
Uh-oh. What is
Sweet
it?
Pea by Julie Murphy.
Yes.
I absolutely love this. It's so sweet, but it also tackles a little bit harder topics as well, because Patricia, also known as Sweet Pea, her parents announced that they're getting a divorce, and she didn't know what to expect from that, and she never could have imagined that they would be living in identical houses on the same street. It's actually like her mom's house, a neighbor, and then her dad's house. And their houses look the same, but she has to like split her stuff up between her parents and like, stuff like that. But in the one house between them, there's this eccentric neighbor named Miss Flora May, and she's the famed local advice columnist behind Miss Flora May, which I thought was such a clever name. But for some reason, Flora May has to leave, and she leaves Sweet Pea in charge of like gathering the letters and like sending them to her, and so she can like answer them or whatever. And things happen. It's so, I just love Julie Murphy's like YA stuff. And so I was like, oh yeah, middle grade. Yeah, I'm here for it. Love that it has a fat protagonist. We love to see it. Love it. So what about you, Jacqueline? I know you have one for this contemporary.
My only one. And I read it a couple years ago to fit like some other type of like challenge or something, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have picked it up, because I would have been like, oh, that's a little kid book. So Wonder by RJ, do you say it Palacio? I'm not sure.
Palacio?
I thought it was
Palacio. Palacio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we'll actually, I think we forgot to say that we'll have a link to all the books down below if you want to check out all these recs. But this is about August, who was born with a facial difference that up until now has prevented him from going to a mainstream school. He's starting 5th grade at Beecher Prep, and he wants nothing more than to be treated as an ordinary kid, but all of his new classmates can't get past Augie's extraordinary face. Wonder begins from Augie's point of view, but soon switches to include his classmates, his sister, her boyfriend, and others. And I was literally like crying my eyes out while reading this book. I think I read it all in one day. I just really like, like the more hard-hitting topics and learning more about things. So I think that this was a really good middle grade rec for me to read. And then I watched the movie right after that, and the movie is also so good. Like I haven't seen my gosh,
or read it.
Oh, you haven't done either of them? Okay, well, both.
I'm surprised you haven't read it. You have to read it.
Both of them are so good. And I just felt so bad, because I think also I never went to school, and so reading about the perspective of going to school and like people making fun of you really like upsets me a lot, because I never like dealt with that, and I just can't imagine that that's like what it's like going to school.
And me and Allie are like, yeah, we can't relate.
It's just like, oh my gosh, it's like one of the things that I hate most. I just like, But anyway, I just loved it so much, and I really did. I was crying reading the book, watching the movie. They're both really, really good. So if you don't read, then watch the movie, or vice versa.
All right, what about you, Allie?
Well, I'm kind of going a little off script here because you said Wonder, I want to recommend another middle grade called Out of My Mind by Sharon M. Draper. I have mentioned this to you before, Jackie.
Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, and I think this is the one I'm going to read for the Backlist Readathon.
I'm so excited for you to read it, because it's kind of similar to Wonder in the way that one is middle grade, but also it's about 11-year-old Melody, who's not like most people. She can't walk, she can't talk, she can't write because she has cerebral palsy, but she has a photographic memory. She can remember every detail of everything she's ever experienced. She's the smartest kid in her whole school, but no one knows it.
Oh, that's so frustrating.
Yeah, most people, like her teachers, her doctors, her classmates, they dismiss her as mentally challenged because she can't tell them otherwise. But she refuses to be defined by her disability, and she's determined to let everyone know it somehow. It's so, so good.
That's what frustrates me, like in like out of book recommendation world. In the real world, when people have mental things like this, like disabilities or mental, illnesses and stuff like that, like people just assume because they can't communicate the things means that they don't know it. Just like with deaf people, it just brought me back to that, like thinking what people thought in the old times where they would send them to mental institutions and stuff like that. When really, like, my teachers were like freaking, like, they had their doctorate. You know what I'm saying? Like, so these are really smart people. Like, I don't know, just crazy.
Yeah, it definitely gets you thinking, but it's so good. I'm so excited for you to read it, Jackie. I think you're going to love it. Yeah, if you like Wonder, I think you're going to like it a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely the one that I think I'm going to read. And then all these other ones we're talking about, I'm like writing them down because I'm going to be like, one middle grade a month is going to be my goal.
I am like determined to get as many people as possible to read middle grade. Because one, even if you don't like it, like middle grades are like 100 pages long. So it's not like you're really spending that much time or putting that much energy into it, They're just... Ugh.
Yeah, that's true. And also like what you had said in the beginning is that obviously you're reading a lot of middle grade because you want to have recommendations for the kids that are at your school. And with me being a foster parent, it's like, oh wow, this would be such a good opportunity for me to be reading books, so that way when I do have foster kids at different ages, I can be like, hey, let's read this book. Let's do it.
Yeah, so cute.
So some other contemporary, I'll try to go quick because I kind of have a list, but
it's okay, go for it.
The first one I want to talk about is called Front Desk by Kelly Yang. This is the one I read most recently, and oh my gosh, y'all, 5 stars. It was so good. So this is about a young girl named Mia Tang, and she lives in a motel, not a big house. Her and her parents, they are immigrants, and they just got to the U.S., and it's all about how immigrants are taken advantage of when they get here, and how their drive for the American dream is very much taken advantage of, crushed underfoot. They pretty much, it's even hard for me to read it because I cried so hard at the end of the story.
Yeah, it sounds hard-hitting.
It's based off of the author's real life. And her and her parents came here. They were immigrants. They worked at motels that they lived in. It's her like trying to find friends, and she wants to be a writer so bad, but her mom wants her to stick to math because English isn't her first language. This is all about overcoming and having courage and learning what kindness is and what hard work really looks like, and how if you work hard enough, you're able to escape the circumstances you're put in. And it's just, it's so good. It also tackles it tackles a lot of like stereotypes and racism as well, because they're immigrants, but there's also these things called monthlies. And those are the people who stay at the hotel like year round, like they pay and they just live there. They live at the motel, so they become family. They become like a family, and it's just really cute. I like that one a lot.
Nice.
And then another one I have is one that I'm forever going to recommend. It's called Ghost by Jason Reynolds, my baby, my boo, Jason Reynolds. He's one of my favorite middle grade authors. But this is a series, actually. It's called the Track series. And this first book is all about Ghost, whose real name is Castle Cranshaw. And running is all he's ever known, but not for a track team. He's always been about basketball, but something in his life makes him run as fast as he can, as far as he can, with his mother. And he runs into this track team, and he realizes that his natural talent can actually help him get rid of a lot of anger and a lot of the past, and like outrun the circumstances that he's been dealt with his past with his family. And he's trying to see, like, can he run far enough from his past before it catches up to him, kind of thing. It's so stinking good. So good. It's very short.
This sounds really interesting.
It's very short. And it's a whole series. So, like, you get into the life of first him, and then the next book is about one of his teammates who's mixed and adopted, and then the next book is about one of his female teammates who's having some trouble at home, has a little sister, lost both her parents. So it tackles different themes in each book, but they're just so good, and I feel like they're very relatable to a lot of kids.
Sadly,
for sure.
But yes.
But this is one of the books that I recommend, and to my students, and it's constantly off my bookshelf. Like, one kid will return it, another kid will pick it up, another kid will return it, the next kid will pick it up. And I think it's just because they see so much of themselves in this series that I just love it. I always recommend it, and the kids love it too. The next book I have is called The Crossover by Kwame Alexander, and this is actually written in verse. It's very short, but this is about a young boy named Josh. He's 12, and he has a twin brother named Jordan, and they're both really great at basketball. It's in their blood, but he also likes to rap and rhyme, and that's kind of how you read the book. You read his rhymes and his raps as the book. And this is all about family. It's all about brotherhood, and he learns how, like, breaking the rules can come at a terrible price. And the climax of this story, I was bawling. I was bawling.
I borrowed this one from the library, and I had borrowed a whole bunch of books at the same time. And because it was in verse, that's why I got it. And I didn't get to finish it, and you just reminded me I need to get that book again so I can finish it.
Yes.
Because it was really good when I read of it, but all my books were due back, and I was like, and I haven't checked it out or bought it or whatever.
Yeah, this one is just great. It's funny, it's quick, it's deep at times, and it's just all about basketball, brotherhood, change, and the power that a family can have on your life. And this is another one that grabs my students, and they're like, can I read another one? I'm like, what? Okay. Yeah,
I know.
sure.
I love the sports middle grades recommendations because I feel like that's such a, like, I don't know, neglected part of middle grade almost, you know?
And that's a series too. He has more. Kwame Alexander has more in the series. Like, he has a, I think it's called Books, that has to do with soccer, and he, like, does a bunch of different sports in the series. So that's cool. My next recommendation is Other Words for Home by Jasmine Warga. This was actually one of my currently reading book club picks, and I am so glad it was. It's written in verse as well, and it's another immigrant story. Because of the war happening in Syria, our main character, Jude, she leaves her brother and her father behind in Syria and comes and moves to Cincinnati, Ohio. Like, Syria to Ohio. I'm like, wow, the culture shock.
What a big difference.
Yes. And at first, everything in America seems way too fast, way too loud, and not like the American movies that Jude has always loved. She's not prepared when starting school, and she's labeled as the Middle Eastern girl, an identity she's never known before. But with that also comes unexpected surprises. She meets a lot of new friends, a whole new family, and theater, a school musical that Jude must try out for because her biggest dream is to become a famous American actress. It's so good. So good. I gave it 5 stars. It was like one of the easiest 5 stars I've ever given. Loved it so much. So Jelly. Gwen, yes, I got Gwen to read this one.
And it was so good, you guys. 5 stars.
I remember when you guys buddy read that.
Yes, Jelly by Joe Cottrell. This is about Angelica, Jelly for short, who's the queen of comedy at school. She has a personality as big as she is. We have some plus size rep in middle grades, y'all.
Yes.
I am all about it. Being a plus size lady, I just love to see it. I love to see it.
Me too.
So she kind of uses her comedy as a way to cover up, like, instead of
insecurities.
Yeah, her insecurities. So instead of, like, being bullied because she's bigger, she's like, well, let me just make a joke out of everything. So, and I just love it. It's so stinking good. Her mom has a new boyfriend. She wants to be a writer. She has some poetry. It's just so good. So
yeah,
good.
And they have her poems, like, in the book, and you're like, wow, she's, like, good.
I know. You forget. You get so immersed in just Jelly as a character that you forget, like, oh, wait, the author is writing these poems as a 12-year-old. So, of course, they're really good. But you forget about that. You're just like, wow, she's so talented.
Yeah, and I love the cover of this one, too.
Me too. Look it up, y'all. Look it up. My next one is one that I hold really near and dear to my heart. It's Blended by Sharon M. Draper. Blended is the first time I've ever seen myself in a book. It's about a mixed girl who has a black dad and a white mom, which is just like me. I've never seen any other story, especially in middle grade, where the person is mixed and mixed exactly like I am. And if you go to Goodreads and you look at the synopsis, the first line is, "You're so exotic. You look so unusual. But what are you really?" I've had all of those questions asked to me before. And this is about 11-year-old Isabella, who is used to those kind of comments. Her father's black, her mom's white, but that doesn't mean she likes them. And now that her parents are divorced and getting along worse than ever, Isabella feels more like a push-me-pull-me toy. So she has 1 week with her dad and his girlfriend, and the next week she's with her mom and her mom's boyfriend, and she just feels pushed and pulled as she's trying to figure out who she is as a person and her identity. And she's like code switching back and forth between her mom and her dad and being around black people than being around white people. And it's just so many things that I have felt in my life. There's even so many conversations she has with her parents that I was like, I've had these exact same conversations with my parents. Like, even just on standardized tests, do I check black or do I check white? There's no mix. There's no, like, I don't want to be other because I'm a somebody, you know? I'm not just an other. I'm someone. But I don't know which one to choose. Like, kind of conversations like that.
I mean, I remember you telling me about this, and I'm like, how hard is it to put on a standardized test mixed? Or, like, combination?
Yes.
Or something?
Or,
like, can you check more than one?
diverse. Like, come on.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why? Why do they need to know what color your skin is anyway?
Right.
Like, why?
Exactly. But I also had my sister read this. I read this for the first time last year in 2020. My sister is turning 32 this year, and I made her read it. And she was like, I've never read someone that looks like us. And I was like, exactly, that's why I wanted you to read it. And we both loved it. So
That's
good.
awesome.
Yeah. Okay. That one's going on my list.
That one's been on my TBR since she mentioned it. I just haven't got around to it, but it's
I feel
there.
like, I don't know if it was when I was talking to you before or if I heard you mention it somewhere else, but you recently were talking about this before.
I was.
Like,
yeah.
I don't
She's
know.
always
Maybe
talking about this book.
Yeah, I am. Because it's just, like I said, it's the first time I've seen myself. Oh, and I was reading, this is probably why, because I was reading reviews on Goodreads, and it was just, you know, people who were ignorant, and they were saying stuff like, I gave this 2 stars because it's not realistic. This would never happen to a girl this age. And I'm like, y'all need to wake up. This stuff happens to kids all the time. And just because you're not of that race or you haven't seen it before doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I remember I got so mad I started crying during the vlog I did of this because I was just like, people just don't know. They're so in their own bubble. They're so in their own culture that it's hard for them to think that other things could be happening that they're not aware of.
Right.
And I'm like, after all the Black Lives Matter stuff we've been seeing, you gotta know it's real. Like, this isn't fake stuff. It's been happening for years.
I'm glad that you read that book. I'm glad you found yourself in a book. That's so powerful.
Me too. It is. I hope everyone is able to find themselves in a book. And I think that's another reason I love middle grades, because I've been noticing, and I'll talk about this more later with new releases, but I've been noticing how diverse middle grades is. I feel like middle grades is the most diverse genre I have ever seen. I've ever read. And you'll see that with all the new releases I talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Listening to you guys talk, it's like, well, why haven't I picked up a middle grade before? Because all of these topics that you guys have been talking about are ones that I am usually looking for in, like, adult books. It's the more of the hard-hitting topics. Like, that's what I go for. So I'm like, gosh, why didn't I, like, start reading these? I didn't know. I thought, in my mind, I'm like, oh, middle grade, that's just, like, little kid books, you know? Like, I didn't think about it.
Yeah, it definitely tackles harder topics. I will say that they obviously don't go as deep as like an adult novel talking about the same thing would.
Right.
But it definitely gets you questioning and thinking about these topics. And then that way you're able to do your own research kind of thing sometimes, or at least that's what I found.
Yeah, it's also great because I would love to see more parents reading these books with their kids because, like, for example, with Blended, there's so many conversations you can have. And then also with my last contemporary recommendation, it's called Look Both Ways, A Tale Told in 10 Blocks by Jason Reynolds. And it actually has some illustrations by Alexander Nabom. But this one tells 10 different stories of 10 different kids on 10 different blocks of a street on their way home. And you see so many different lives, and it has that whole theme of, like, you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. The very first story out of this book I was in tears. Get to the second chapter, I was in tears. Like, for example, let me give you an example. So the second story in the book are about these kids who who seem like troublemakers. They seem like they are just trying to cause havoc. They steal change. They go around stealing any like leftover money they see on the ground or on people's desk or whatever. And then you get to the end of the story realizing why they're stealing this money, and it breaks your heart. So like, I'm like tearing up right now. Like, get with it, Ali. Get with it. But for this book, I feel like it would be so great if parents read it along with their kids, so then they could have conversations about how you treat people, how you have to be kind to everyone because you don't know what they're going through.
Exactly. That's such a huge thing.
Yes. And I feel like that's a big thing with middle grades. It's always teaching you that you don't know people's lives the way you think you do. You don't know what they're going through on the inside. You don't know what they go home to. And to always be kind and be generous and be loving. And that's another thing to love about middle grades.
I know, that reminds me of just like teaching in general, because that's like one of the things that like I always, like, if a kid was having a bad day, you know, you could never like try to take it personally. Like, I would take it personally, but you try not to take it personally, because you're like, we live in an area, or I live in an area that there's a lot of military and stuff. So a lot of times, like with my boys, when they would be like behaving badly, let's say, you know, I would always be like, Dad's not home. I bet. I would tell my TA all the time. I'd be like, I'm talking to Mom tonight because I bet you Dad's not home. And sure enough, I would go and like, Dad just got shipped somewhere, you know, or something like that. Or their grandmother just passed, or there's always like a reason and stuff like that. So yeah, that just kind of reminds me of that. As some of you know, I use Anchor to host my podcast, and I couldn't be more pleased with their service. It made it super easy to go from being a beginner that had no idea what in the world I was doing to someone that still has no idea what I'm doing, but it looks like I do because Anchor does all of the hard work for me. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, let me give you a rundown. Basically, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place, and here's how it works. Anchor lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to the most popular listening platforms, including Spotify, with a single tap. Anchor is also the only place you can publish video podcasts to Spotify. With Anchor, creators can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads like this one and podcast subscriptions. You want to hear the best part? Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, so jumping into some fantasy, I have one recommendation. It's part of a series. The first book is called The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. And this is about a girl that thinks she's cursed. She escapes death and finds herself in a magical world, but she is then tested beyond her wildest imagination. So she goes to this magical world, and there's kind of like these trials that she has to go through. And there's like a hotel with a cat, and it's so magical and wonderful. So like I said at the beginning, like if you like fantasy stories, look for fantasy middle grade. Ali, what are your other recommendations?
So I have two for this because I'm really not into fantasy just in general, but I have tried to branch out just so I can give recommendations. But my first recommendation is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is a story where every year the people of this town, they leave a baby as an offering to the witch that lives in the forest. They hope that the sacrifice will keep the witch from terrorizing their town. But the witch in the forest, her name is Zan, is kind and gentle and loving. She shares her home with this swamp monster named Glurk, who is just like the sweetest, precious thing. I was like, never in my life have I ever wanted a swamp monster as a pet. but I read this book and I was like, now I want one. And she also lives with like this super duper tiny dragon named Firion. But Zan, the witch, she actually rescues the abandoned children that this town is leaving in the woods, and she delivers them to families who are unable to conceive in another town.
Can I live in this book?
Yeah.
And she nourishes the babies with starlight along the journey. But one year, the witch accidentally feeds a baby that she rescues moonlight instead of starlight, which gives this child extraordinary magical powers. Ooh. And so she keeps the baby for her own, names her Luna, and she's trying to teach her stuff, but her magic becomes too overwhelming. And that's kind of where the story goes. It was very fun and whimsical.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Like, I don't read a lot of fantasy either, but that one sounds really cute.
Yeah, it was super cute, super whimsical, super, like, lighthearted. Towards the end, there are some, like, deeper, it's middle grade, so there's some themes and some morals of the story going on. But it's mainly about friendship and protecting those who you love and keeping people safe.
I have seen that book a lot on like BookTube and Bookstagram and stuff. That's definitely middle grade I see like going around.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I recommend it. It's fun. Another one that's kind of like, it's fantasy / historical fiction-ish. This one's called Ghost Boys by Joel Parker Rhodes, another Joel Parker Rhodes book. This is about 12-year-old Jerome, who is shot by a police officer who mistakes his toy gun for a real threat, which is based off a true story. And as a ghost, he observes the devastation that's been unleashed on his family and community in the wake of what just happened. But soon, Jerome meets other ghosts, and he meets Emmett Till, a boy from a very different time with very similar circumstances. And Emmett helps Jerome process what's happening on a journey towards recognizing how historical racism may have led to the events that ended his life. This is a book that we teach at our school in 7th grade.
Wow.
And it's a hard-hitting book. The fantasy aspect is the fact that, they're ghosts and they're talking and stuff like that.
Like the paranormal issue.
Yeah, but it's very much based on real events. And it's written in such a way that it's simple enough that you can read it with kids and it's not going to traumatize them. Like, it's not gory. That's the beauty of middle grades. It's not gory. Yeah. It's not detailed enough to where it's going to give kids nightmares, but it's still tackling a very serious, very real issue that a lot of kids, especially in the demographic that I'm teaching in, a lot of kids can relate to.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about those conversations in class, like, wow.
Yes. There's definitely, like, a discussion guide to follow with this one.
Yeah. But and I'm sure all those teachers are like, we're on it.
It's super hard-hitting, though, and it's beautifully written.
So moving on into some mystery, which I think I like this, but I only have like one recommendation. I'm definitely going to be branching out and trying some recommendations that Ali gives me. But my recommendation is Green Glass House by Kate Milford. This is the first book in a series. That's what I love about middle grade is if you find something that you like, it's more than likely part of a series, or the author has written several. So this one I've talked about on the podcast before. It's wintertime at Green Glass House, and the creaky Smuggler's Inn is usually quiet during this season, but 12-year-old Milo, the innkeeper's adopted son, plans to spend his holidays relaxing. But things don't go as planned. On the first icy night of vacation, the guest bell starts ringing and ringing and ringing. And all these people start showing up. They're bursting through the doors. And it's just kind of odd. They're all kind of secretive. They're like sharing these like weird, strange stories. And they kind of connect back to the house. And he's trying to figure out like, how is this real? Is this like, just a fun story? And then objects start going missing, and it's Milo and Meddy, the cook's daughter. They start deciphering clues to untangle the web and discover the truth about Green Glass House. So definitely recommend reading in the winter time, or at least the fall time, because like the vibes are like so winter.
Yeah, it sounds cozy.
So I actually don't read a lot of mysteries, I've read a few like scary books. I don't know if that would count in this category or if
Yeah,
that's
let's go ahead and talk about some scary books.
Okay, because I think
so we're going to go into the horror section, which, I mean, obviously horror for middle grade. We're saying this super lightly, guys. These are not scary, okay? If you're reading this as an adult, these are not scary.
Right.
But for middle grade readers, it may deal with some, like, scarier topics.
Boogie Monster.
I would definitely say, like, this book I'm about to recommend is, like, it kind of scared me because it pulls.
Plus, she's a scaredy cat. She's a scaredy cat.
I am a scaredy cat.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Because me and Jacqueline are like, no.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, Allie was scared for a middle grade? I'm like, no, because how dark this book is.
It pulls on a very, like, real fear of, like, losing your parents.
Oh,
so, like,
okay.
it's called Juniper Berry. It's by M.P. Kozlowski, I think that's how you say it. But it's about Juniper, whose parents have not been themselves lately. In fact, they've been cold, disinterested, and cruel. And lonely Juniper Berry and her equally bestest friend, Giles, are determined to figure out why. On a cold and rainy night, Juniper follows her parents as they sneak out of the house and enter the woods. What she discovers is an underworld filled with contradictions, one that is terrifying and inciting, lorded over by a creature both sinister and seductive who can sell you all the world's secrets in a simple red balloon. So, like,
Yeah.
So is this Pennywise?
Is a little...
They're kind of giving away their souls to get their dream. And the more that they do this, the more that they gain success, the less they are themselves. And it's terrifying because it's like the people you trust or you're looking up to.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of that horror book, that adult horror book that I read called Chrysalis, where there was like that alien in the basement and it kept kind of doing the same thing. Okay, go ahead.
This one was just crazy, but it's like, it's all about terror, temptation, and ways in which our choices make us who we are.
Right,
and,
but then as a child, you're like, why are my parents being weird? Like, this is freaking me out.
Exactly. But it did scare me. I was like, this is so creepy. As I was reading, I was like, for a kid, if I was reading this, I would be terrified. So
definitely.
That's one.
So one I'll mention real quick is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. While exploring her new home, a girl named Caroline discovers a secret door. And then behind that door, there's an alternate world that mirrors her own, but things are very different. They seem similar, but maybe they're better, maybe they're worse. You have to read to find out.
I don't know if you sold me on that one because I read that one Neil Gaiman graphic novel and I was like, nope.
Which one did you read?
It was like Preludes and Nocturne. It was like The
Okay,
Sandman. Okay. Yeah, and I was like, what is happening in this?
No, but that's totally different.
I literally had to watch a YouTube video to understand the concept, and I still did not understand.
I've heard Coraline is actually terrifying, so...
Yeah.
I actually have a Neil Gaiman book that I'm going to recommend, even though I didn't like it. But I don't
well, that's the thing. I think that when we recommend books, we can't only recommend things that we like ourselves.
Right.
Because, like, that would be a very small audience. You know? That would be party of 3.
Yeah. I'm a very small percentage of the people that were just like, absolutely not. I don't like this. Because it has 4.13 stars on Goodreads. Most of the people in the review say that this is, like, one of the best books they've ever read. And I'm just like, no. I gave it 1 star. But so many people like it. So here you go. The Graveyard Book, people. This is about Nobody Owens. He's known to his friends as Bod. He's a perfectly normal boy. Well, he would be perfectly normal if he didn't live in a graveyard, being raised and educated by ghosts, with a solitary guardian who belongs to neither the world of the living nor the world of the dead. So there are dangers and adventures for him in this graveyard. There's strange and terrible things happening, and there's a gravestone entrance to a desert that leads to the city of ghouls. He has a friendship with a witch. There's like so much happening in this book, and so many people love it. It's just not my thing, you know. But I don't really like scary paranormal things to begin with.
It's funny, and this will go to show you how much reading Allie and I, like, our tastes are so similar, because I also did not like that one.
Can't relate.
Oh, you read it? Okay.
Yes, I read it. I did the graphic novel form of it, and I was just like... It's been a while since I've read it, but I was like, am I not understanding or what is the problem?
I felt the same way. I was like, I feel like I'm too dumb for this book.
But people love it. Like, they love it.
Wow, sounds like a Neil Gaiman book.
Yes, it's, yeah. Anywho, my last recommendation for this category is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness.
Good recommendation.
Yes, I love this book. It's darkly funny. It's a deeply moving story about a boy, his seriously ill mother, and an unexpected monstrous visitor. I really don't want to give too much away.
Right.
Because I feel like that's part of what I love about this book.
Almost of it.
Yeah, it's very unique. Bawled my eyes out. You can watch my vlog. Like, I'm literally on camera just like crying, snot, like tissues all up in my nose. Yeah, this one got me. I was just not expecting everything that happened to happen. So highly recommend this one. I'll just say this, give you a little intrigue. So 7 minutes past midnight, 13-year-old Connor wakes up to find a monster outside his bedroom window. But it isn't the monster Connor's been expecting. He's been expecting one from his nightmares. And that's all I'm going to say. It's so good.
Yeah. Leave us on like our pins and needles. Of course, I've read it. And I cried. It was definitely way more hard-hitting than I thought. And it's also a movie now. I have not seen the movie, but it's also a movie now. Yeah. So if I would recommend reading it. The graphics kind of really fit with the book.
Get the illustrated version.
But they're dark and they're just like weird and different and fun. Like, I just loved it. This was one that I absolutely love as well.
This is one I'm not going to forget for a very long time.
Oh, I'll never forget this book. I'll never forget it. So moving on to our last category that we're going to be breaking down for you guys, dystopian / sci-fi, kind of like all those kind of things. So A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. A strange visitor comes to the Murray's house and beckons Meg, her brother Charles Wallace, and their friend Calvin O'Keefe on a most dangerous and extraordinary adventure, one that will threaten their lives and our universe. It's part of a series, so if you like the first book, continue on.
So for me, some recommendations I have for this is Gwen's fave, The Giver by Lois Lowry.
I'm so glad. I was like, I knew she was going to talk about this, and so I was like, okay, I won't talk about it because I talk about it all the time, but it's so good. The writing is just so like good. Chef's kiss.
It is. I used to teach this before actually Scythe replaced The Giver. I used to teach The Giver all the time, but then Scythe replaced it. But this is just so stinking good. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's weird. It's like...
Also a movie.
It's also a movie. The book is better, though. I like the book better.
The book was way better.
Yeah.
And it's part of a quartet, so if you like it, continue on in the series.
Did you finish the whole thing? I've only read The Giver.
I have read all of it.
Wow.
Multiple times.
Wow. I just felt like this book kept you guessing from beginning to end. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen when I first started, I had no idea. And it ends on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. So this is a book, I'll tell you a little bit more history about it, by Lois Lowry, because she's the queen. Like, okay, the reason why I love this book is like the writing, it is dystopian, but it's more than dystopian. It's more of a utopian society. And I haven't read a lot of those. I always have a hard time distinguishing, between, is this dystopian or is this utopian? But in this one, it's a utopian society where basically everything is the same. All people are the same color, you do the same jobs, everybody's on the same life track, you get assigned like husband, wives, there's like this birthing center that these kids come out and then kids get assigned to people, and then, as you're going through school, like at this age you get a bike, at this age you get your first job, and like everybody's the same.
It's everything's so boring. Normal.
Yeah, it's just like this boring, but it's like this perfect world because they wanted it like this. They wanted it to be even Steven across the board. Everybody's the same. And then, so the one boy gets, at a certain age, they get their first job. And he is the receiver. He is the new receiver of memories. So the giver has to give him the memories. So basically, the things that he's giving Jonah, no one else has experienced except for these people that have this one job, and it's only one person that gets this job. And once you find out like what the job is and what it entails and how heavy and how hard of a job that is, it's literally mind-blowing. And I literally was just thinking about it, like, with current day and, like, how she wrote it and how, like, you know, we as a society are right now, and how sometimes you can see in the media and stuff how we want to be, and, you know, just like wiping out diversity, and then, like, you're like, no, we need diversity for this specific reason. Like, did y'all not read this book? But anyway, at the end it does stop on a cliffhanger kind of moment. To me, it was a finished book. I loved where it ended. I didn't think it was that ambiguous, but Lois Lowry, the author, did say that she got hundreds of thousands. Like, it was like she would never stop getting letters about people saying, like, we need to know what happened next. What's next? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So she continued writing. And the second book, Gathering Blue, and the third book, I don't remember the title of off the top of my head. They both are... I don't want to, you know, like, spoil anything. They're different, but they're very similar to the first book. The fourth book, Sun, is a direct reflection from the first book. Like, it's like the follow-up. And sadly, it was the least strong of the entire quartet. So I'm like, the writing, I mean, it was still a good story, but I just didn't think it was like, I mean, to me, The Giver is like God tier perfect. Like, written as a story, God tier. Like, it's just so, it's a masterpiece. Like, but The Sun was really good. It just wasn't like God tier.
So
like The Giver was.
I actually did read, I guess I didn't realize that was middle grade, but I read The Giver just this past Christmas. I read the graphic novel one. And it does have a very big ambiguous ending, so much so that I thought the library copy was messed up, and I was like, is this missing pages? I was like, maybe someone ripped these out, and I was like looking at the back, and I was like, no, I guess this is the end. Yeah. So
I thought it was perfect for the story. I think the reason why I like it is an ambiguous ending, but I guess I like that it was because it let you make up your own mind on what happened at the end. And that's why she left it like that, because she wanted people, based on their experience of the book, to make up their own mind.
It's one of those books that when I would teach it to my students, they would be so mad at me when we finished. They'd be like, so that's it? It's over?
And you're like, well, yeah, kind of.
The attitude, though, like, imagine reading that ending with 8th graders. They're just, like, hating you for the rest of the week. They're like, why did we read this? If there wasn't an ending, why did we... I'm like, y'all need to chill out. But I do agree. It's so, so good. 5 stars, like, without a doubt. Alone by Megan E. Freeman. This is actually a new release. It came out in January of this year. I think it's her debut author as well. I mean, her debut novel. I don't think she's written anything else. But this is about a 12-year-old named Maddie. And she schemes this, like, secret sleepover with her 2 best friends. But they end up not being able to make it, so she just goes on her own, and she's sleeping at her grandparents' house, like their vacation home, by herself. She wakes up to a nightmare. Everyone in her town has been mysteriously evacuated, and they abandoned the town, and she's the only one who was left behind. So it's a survival story. Yeah. It's a survival story. She has no power, no working phone lines, no internet access. She has to learn to survive on her own. Her only companions are a Rottweiler named George and all the books she can read. And she learns to trust her own intelligence, and she invents clever ways to survive in this place that's been deserted and forgotten. And she has to, like, escape natural disasters, looters, wild animals. And her biggest enemy is the crushing loneliness that she's facing every single day. And it was really good. Like, I am currently doing a reading vlog of this.
Nice.
So you'll see my reactions there, and I'll tell you my reading and stuff there. But it was good. I will say it was good. It was different. I've never, ever read a middle grade like this. This is something that's new. It's also written in verse.
Okay. I didn't know it was written in verse. I did see this because I was looking, like, you know, middle grade releases or whatever. I didn't realize it was written in verse. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think I say that a lot in my blog. Like, I've never read anything like this. This is so weird. This is such a weird middle grade. But it's good. It's good.
Nice. So Jacqueline and I don't usually keep up to date on middle grade releases, but we know that you do, Ali. So share a few that you're really looking forward to this year.
This is my time to shine. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Okay, so the first one I want to bring up is another one I'm reading for that reading vlog. I haven't read it yet, but I'm super excited about it. It's called Root Magic by Eden Royce. And this is like a historical fiction middle grade novel. It's a historical ghost story set in South Carolina in the 1960s. It's a tale about courage, friendship, and black girl magic. So things are changing for the main character, Jezebel. Her grandmother has passed away, and the local police deputy won't stop harassing her family. School integration is starting to arrive in South Carolina, and Jez, her twin brother, and her twin brother Jay, they're beginning the school year with a bunch of new kids. So it's about their life. It's about, there's like magic in it as well. It just sounds like it's going to be a really fun time, and the cover is beautiful. I think it's going to be hard hitting, but also whimsical at the same time. Nice. Which is the great thing about middle grades, because you can do both.
And they have beautiful covers.
Yeah, they do. They do. The next one I have is All You Need, like kneading dough, is Love. And this one is by Tanya Guerrero. And this is about 12-year-old Alba, who doesn't want to live with her estranged grandmother in Barcelona. But her mother needs her to be far, far away from their home in New York City, because this is the year that her mother is going to finally leave Alba's abusive father. Hopefully, if she's strong enough to finally do it. So while her mom is trying to like get out of this bad relationship, she's in Barcelona. She starts forming a close relationship with her grandmother, meets a supportive father figure, makes new friends, and discovers her passion and talent for bread making.
I think this is for you, Jacqueline.
It just sounds so good. I'm like, this is going to be great. We get to go to Spain. Like, we get to see a different culture. We get to make bread. Like, what? Also, look up the cover, because, like, you're going to want to read it after you see the cover.
Yeah, that does sound something I would read.
Another book is Life in the Balance by Jen Petro Roy, which is coming out in February. But this is about Veronica, who struggles to balance softball, friends, family, and turmoil. It's supposed to be like super honest, super raw. Her mom announces that she's entering rehab for alcoholism. And her dad tells her that he might not be able to afford the fees needed to be on the new softball team. So she's going through a lot of feelings, a lot of changes in her home life. And I played softball growing up. And so this is one I was like, yes, I have never read a softball book before. Why not start now? You know, it just sounds like it's going to be really, really good. My next recommendation comes out March 9th, and it's Starfish by Lisa Phipps. So excited about this. Some more plus size rep. It's written in verse. Like,
she's like laying in a pool, right?
Yeah, she's like laying in a pool like a starfish. Yep. So Ellie, our main character, she's tired of being fat shamed and does something about it in this debut novel in verse. Woohoo! This sounds like this has all of my like jump on it words. Written in verse, like she's plus size, middle grades, like what? So ever since she wore a whale swimsuit and made a big splash at her 5th birthday party, she's been bullied about her weight. To cope, she tries to live by the fat girl rules, like no making waves, avoid eating in public, don't move so fast that your body jiggles, and she's found her safe place, her swimming pool, where she feels weightless in a fat-obsessed world.
Wait, so she's 5?
Well, she's 5 grade. When she gets made fun of, right?
Yeah, that was when she got made fun of, but now she's in middle school.
Oh my gosh, but like a 5-year-old?
What? Like, who does that?
Real people.
Oh my god.
Well, yeah, that's true. It does happen.
It actually does happen.
Oh man.
I'm just like, come on, she's a kid. Leave her alone.
Yeah, a 5-year-old in a swimming suit is being made fun of. That's crazy to me.
Sick world.
But I think I'm going to like this because it's all about her unapologetically being her own, like, fabulous self. And that's what I like to see. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's go, middle grades. My next recommendation is coming out February 24th. Oh my gosh, yes. So soon. It's called Strong as Fire, Fierce as Flame by Sapriya Kelkar. I think is how you say it. This story is crazy. I have never heard of a middle grade story like this. Let me just give you a little sprinkle, a little bit of something, something. So in 1857, India, 12-year-old Mira escapes a life she has no say in and certain death on her husband's funeral pyre. So that's like where they lay someone on top of fire and they like cremate them that way. So her parents, there's a war going on, and when her like arranged husband gets killed, it's like tradition for for the wife or whatever to be thrown onto the fire as well. And she escapes that only to end up being a servant to a British general in the East India Company. So, like, there's just so much going on. I'm like, what the heck? I've never read a middle grade like this. I feel like I'm going to learn a lot. It's all about her, like, trying to, like, does she rebel with her people, or does she try to stay safe and let other people make decisions for her? Is she going to be the girl on fire and write her own destiny? I'm just like, what?
Yeah, that sounds crazy.
This does sound crazy. So I was like, definitely got to get my hands on this one and see what this is all about. And then my last recommendation, I mean, I could go on forever, but the last one I'm going to talk about here is called Soul Lanterns by Shaw Kuski. And this is about a 12-year-old named Nozomi. She lives in the Japanese city of Hiroshima. She wasn't born when the bombing of Hiroshima took place, but every year she joins her family at the lantern floating ceremony to honor those who were lost in the bombing. And people write the names of their deceased loved ones along with messages of peace on paper lanterns and set them afloat on the river. But this year, she notices that her mother always releases one lantern with no name. So she starts asking questions, and when complicated stories of loss and loneliness unfold, her and her friends come up with different creative ways to share their loved ones' experiences. So they start opening people's eyes to, like, the struggle that they've all had to keep hidden. And it pulls in the whole community and shows the community new ways to show compassion. And I was like, what? This is going to be so good. It sounds so informative, but also, like, it's going to teach a really good lesson as well.
Wow.
This one comes out March 16th. So those are some of, like, the recent or the new releases that are coming out, you know, January, February, March. So
yeah,
you don't have to wait too long.
And again, we do have a link in the notes of today's show. It will have all of information for Ali, her YouTube channel, her Instagram. It will have a link where you can look at all of these books and synopsises and the author and when it releases and all of that.
Ali, we both want to thank you so much for joining us for today's episode and chatting all about middle grade books with us. Lots of recommendations. I think I have like 10 recommendations that I wrote down.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I'm really looking forward to the new book releases that you talked about, but then also going back and reading the old ones that you recommended.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I can talk about middle grades for hours.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm so glad that, like, we had you on and I was able to figure out what I'm going to read next.
Yeah, so definitely she's doing some reading vlogs of reading some of the books that she talked about. So check out her channel. Again, all of that stuff will be in the notes of today's show. Thank you, Allie.
Thanks for having me.
So what's been going on in your corner of the world, Jacqueline?
Well, we've been getting lots of snow and ice. Like, it's not like a huge amount at the moment, but it's like every single week we're getting some type of like snowstorm, ice storm or whatever. So it's a little like frustrating because it's like, okay, then I can't like drive my car to work and I have to like get my boss to pick me up because she has 4-wheel drive, or I can't get home. I literally was trying to like get home. Thankfully, my boss was like driving behind me because we both closed, but I was going up. I have a Prius, so it's not good in the snow, and I was like going up the hill and I was like, never mind, I'm going backwards. This isn't working. So I had to like
stuff out in Texas though.
Yeah, my sister lives in Texas, and there was like so many of my friends in the book club live in Texas, and yeah, they were like without power for so long, and like water and boiling,
even
all that kind of stuff.
One of our guests here on the podcast, like, she was struggling, and I was just, what can I do to help? It's all over the news, and the college is there, and like, obviously we have friends there.
So we didn't have it that bad. Like, we didn't lose power, but I have been in that situation before a couple years ago, and it is not cool. And we did invest in a generator because of like how torturous it is to go without power.
I think we're just, I am personally over the cold weather in general. I am looking forward to spring.
I usually, like, I do love all different seasons. Like, I could never live somewhere where it's like always the same season. But I'm just like kind of ready for it to get warmer, and I'm really excited for like planting. I want to plant a little garden in pots on my front porch. Like, I'm not going to do the raised bed garden that I did at my last house because we don't really have much of a backyard. It's more of like a front and side yard. So we have a nice porch at this new house, and I want to put like pots of like just some vegetables and herbs and stuff. So I'm really excited to like get that going because my porch is kind of like empty and bare, and that's gonna be, you know, like decoration, you know what I mean?
I feel like my plants are just, they are so hungry for the sun, and I'm doing everything possible to get it to them.
You're such a good plant mom. I'm a plant
killer.
My
bear paw succulent is just, so sad today, and I had to take off some of the leaves and like try to propagate them. And my big, huge, tall cactus, I had to cut one of them off, and I'm trying to get it to root. It's just sad. But anyway, this weekend is really busy for me. I have book club events happening, a bunch of them actually, all in the same weekend, and I need to film and edit for my YouTube channel. I'm doing a birthday book haul because my friends have been so gracious. Jacqueline, my book club friends, my online friends, Ali sent me a book for my birthday. Plus, I want to read, and I need to catch up on my shows that I want to watch. I have a whole list of shows that I want to watch.
Oh, I know.
But what did I do last night? I just started a new show. I was like, you know what? Forget all these shows that I have on my list. I started a show called Tell Me Your Secrets, which is on Amazon Prime, and it just came out. And it's 10 episodes in total. It's a complex thriller revolving 3 characters, each with troubling pasts, clouding their intersecting motives. So you have Emma, who is a young woman who once loved a dangerous killer. You have John, who is a former serial predator, desperate for redemption. And you have Mary, a grieving mother who is obsessed with finding her missing daughter. It was like midnight last night, and I decided to watch this. So I watched 2 episodes last night, and I am hooked.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I can't add another show right now because, like, okay, so Alvin and I, we've been here, you know, everyone's been raving about Schitt's Creek. So we finally started it, I mean, like 1 or 2 months ago, and we've been, like, occasionally watching, like, they're really short episodes, like 20 minutes, and we just hit season 2, and we're really loving it because, like, you just get really invested in the characters, and it's like kind of funny but kind of like real life. I don't know, it's really, really good. So we're watching that. We're also obsessed with WandaVision right now. Gotta watch the new episode from yesterday.
I don't have Disney Plus.
Oh, it's so
I can't.
good.
But I want to watch it so bad, but I just don't have Disney Plus.
I'm sorry. And then I'm going to start actually tonight. I'm going to watch 3 episodes with the book club. The Behind Her Eyes adaptation that came out on Netflix. So watching 3 episodes tonight, and I'm really excited. I hope it's really good. And then I'm also excited because the One book adaptation series is coming to Netflix in a couple weeks, I think. And yeah, I'm gonna watch that too. So I'm like, I can't start another one.
I need to watch the One. I forgot about Behind Your Eyes, but I have something else going on for the book club tonight. But I want to finish watching Bridgerton. I want to watch Night Stalker. It's only like 4 episodes. I think I have 1 episode left. I want to watch Firefly Lane. That's 10 episodes. My husband and I just finished Outlander season 4 on Netflix, and I also want to watch that Spinning Out movie that's based on like a YA book that I haven't read, but I want to watch the series.
Oh, and I'm an episode behind on This Is Us. Like, that's my favorite show ever.
I'm behind on This Is Us.
I'm an episode behind on that. I gotta catch up. So, can we just like quit all of our jobs and stuff and just like watch shows, read books, and do everything
and make
else?
Podcasts?
Yeah, and sourdough stuff.
I know. I just feel like I just can't catch up. So yeah, that's what's going on.
Another reminder that our next episode on March 15th will be our book discussion of the much-anticipated release of YA thriller The Project by Courtney Summers. And if you'd like to recommend a topic for us to discuss in a future episode, or for us to read and discuss a certain book, reach out to us at talkbookishpodcast@gmail.com or on Instagram at talkbookishpodcast. As always, we'll be back every other Monday for more bookish talk, so come back and join us again in 2 weeks. Until next time, happy reading!